Oh, good morning, everybody. It is 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. It is 10:30 Central Time, which is what Nabil and James meant when they said, "Let's record a podcast at 10:30." So we're up and at 'em nice and early. Nabil is writing on my screen and pretending that I can't see it, but I can. I don't know how to get rid of it, so we're just gonna. There it goes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is a Sunday morning. I've got James and Nabil here with me as always. How you guys doing?
Good.
Oh man, James, you're looking like blurry. Nabil, is James blurry for you too? I think it's just
Maybe my Wi-Fi is just the worst. I just installed a new router and
okay.
modem, so we're giving it a test run.
We lost you once, but you got back pretty quick. So if that has to happen, just jump back in and we'll keep going. Nabil, you wanted to talk Niners. What's up? Like, obviously, so the news has just been announced yesterday that we traded up from the number 3 pick. How you feeling?
The reason why I marked this whole "I still love you, Jimmy" is I think this gives me my hope of a good change, a good transition, which I think is kind of more or less what we had talked about all season. Is there really an option, especially after like Matthew Stafford signed somewhere else or whatever? There wasn't like really anything else that would have been that much better than Jimmy that would have been worth paying a higher contract. So this is perfect. I think we both get what we want. You can still have your love for Jimmy, and I can focus on the future. And I think what having the 3rd pick overall does is provide us the opportunity to get a quarterback. I can't imagine why they would do this move unless they were targeting one of those 3. And those 3 being, I'm going to totally mess it up, but Justin Field, Zach Wilson, which are the 2 that are likely getting to us, and then Trevor Lawrence, who's likely going to the Jaguars.
Yeah, Lawrence is going to go number 1, and so it's whoever's left of the other 2 is most likely who we're going with. James, what your thoughts initially?
Yeah, when I saw the timing and like how much they gave up, it made me think they were probably in on Watson, and then everything with that situation happened. And I think I'm pretty happy with it. I think that you hold on to Jimmy and do kind of like the Alex Smith, Pat Mahomes route of Jimmy knows the offense, give a rookie. And I feel like everyone that's kind of mocked to the Niners at this point could use a year regardless, but like on top of learning Kyle Shanahan's offense. But yeah, I think it's like the first big John Lynch move that it's like, oh, wow, all right, a swing for the fence, like extends the Super Bowl window, gives you a chance to get a rookie quarterback contract to free up like the tight cap that will be coming next year. So I'm stoked. I'm hoping Zach Wilson falls. He's my guy.
Okay. Dude, I think having heard you talk about Zach Wilson, like I'm on board, and like just kind of piggyback off what you were saying is, so I looked up all this kind of stuff of like, okay, what does the contract situation look like for Kyle Shanahan anyway? And I just realized that they extended him through 2025. And so that's enough to get a full development of a quarterback. So if we were to at least keep him and not have one of those like 2 to 3 years of tanking where, okay, bye, and we cut him early or something. This is great. If we can get a young talent who kind of, like you said, the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes kind of eases into the system. Maybe it's just have Jimmy for 1 year and then, trade him later or get rid of him later or whatever. Then that's going to be awesome for the future, assuming one of those 2 left, Justin Field and Zach Wilson, turns out to be as good as they are already being talked about. Now, I'm not going to sit and lie and say that I watch a lot of college football. I don't. I have seen your little highlight video that James said like a couple months ago. Fucking awesome. But I do want to say this is my one little comp. Is it possible that he could be the new modern era of Steve Young? BYU. He's not left-handed, whatever. But he's 6'3", 210. Steve Young was 6'2", 215. So it's like literally the same size. They're both kind of mobile. and they're both from BYU. Maybe it is like just this whole new era that we're gonna start, and I couldn't be more stoked if that's the case. I don't know anything about Justin Fields, so
Like, I obviously, like, I've been on the Garoppolo hype train, but like I still hope so too. Like I really hope that this pans out. We're giving up essentially 3 first-round picks for whoever we're taking. Like, so it kind of better work out, like, because if it doesn't, the next 3 years are going to be difficult to build. Like, so
you can say that though, but if you look at John Lynch's first-round draft history, he whiffed on Thomas and Reuben Foster in the same draft, and we've been fine. So I don't know. I sometimes think first-round draft picks are overrated.
You get less, but you get less capital though. Like, if we're
that's true.
If like let's if it doesn't pan out, and it's weird that we're going to be going to a 17 game schedule, and yes, we also have Josh Rosen, Nabil. Thank you for circling that.
I didn't even notice that until now. Sorry, I was just listening. I'm like, that's interesting.
If that pick pans, if we go 6-11, and that pick next year ends up being top 10 again, then it sucks. Like, we gotta if the Dolphins get multiple top 10 picks out of this, like, that's not good. Hopefully those picks are playoff picks. They're in the mid to high 20s, or even 31, 32, because we're in the Super Bowl. Like, that's ideally what this turns into now. And like, I hope it works. The other question though is, I was talking with Hunter yesterday while we were golfing. When does the replacement take over for Jimmy G? And this is speculation, and honestly, I don't really care when, but we're both thinking like 4 or 5 games in, Garoppolo probably is the starter to start the season, but most likely that change happens midway through the season. I mean, unless we start out 5-0, like, it's gonna be hard to pull Jimmy out at that point. But like, when do you, there's no schedule that's been released too, so like, what's the timing you guys think? Like, I'm thinking about probably Garoppolo still has at least the beginning quarter of the season to prove he can do it. And if he plays great, like if he's throwing for 250 yards a game and has a good, isn't throwing many picks, he's probably going to be given the reins for a little bit longer. But I can't imagine using 3 first-round picks on somebody, and if we're 3-2, not giving the reins over to the rookie. That's my thought. Nabil, what are you thinking the timing is of when this guy, like, whoever it is going to say? Because we're assuming it's quarterback also. Like, and if we actually go D-line, like I joked about, like that's just not going to happen, right? It's going to be a quarterback. When does he come in?
I mean, the only other thing I can think of, right, isn't like one of the other like top 5 picks right now. It's that wide something Chase or whatever from LSU. That, like,
yeah.
As far, not that I think that's I do want to comment on like I think you have to play Garoppolo all season. I can't see why not. I don't see why we have to fall into the same trap that every quarterback that I feel has been, like, there hasn't been that much success as a first-round pick quarterback that just has worked in the recent years. I feel like what we're not doing anymore is grooming these quarterbacks to be prepared, right? I think why it does work maybe for a few games and then we get all excited and then that next season comes and they're just not great is because every team plans for the starting quarterback. So if it's, everyone has notes on Jimmy Garoppolo so they know what's happening. If you get a new quarterback in there, teams have to adjust. So naturally you're going to get some more wins. They're going to look a little bit hotter. The offense is going to be tailored to them. So they're going to be like a little bit shorter passes, something that's a higher completion rate. But I say you play them through the year. Like, what, you're going to change I don't think the offense is going to look different with Jimmy Garoppolo behind it for 2 years. And it's always been enough to win. I can imagine that we're more likely to get either more get injury plagued again, or defense not performing well, and that being the reason why we lose, more than Jimmy throwing it away. Yes, this is coming from the guy who has hated on Jimmy all year. But I do think it comes down to, unless Jimmy starts throwing a bunch of picks, you keep him in there, you play him the whole year, and pray that it's not 6-10 at the end, right? Or that we fall in the bottom 10 so that it's top 10 picks. But I do think the one thing is, even if we end 6-10, the only other thing that we better hope for is that it has nothing to do with Jimmy, because then he becomes a tradable asset to acquire, maybe not the 2 first-round picks that we gave up for the following 2 years, but something that we can actually use to help build something for whoever we do draft, if it is a quarterback. Yeah. But at this point, it has to be, right? Like, the NFL has gotten to a point where you're not giving this much up unless you're probably going quarterback.
Right. James, your thoughts on the timing of when the new guy's going to take over?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar to Nabil, but I think it also depends on who they go with. I know there's also like rumblings of Mac Jones or Trey Lance, which I don't think either is going to happen personally. I think that's all smokescreens. But if they do take like a Trey Lance who's played like 17 college games, I think he sits a full year for sure. And if it's like a Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, I think there's a much higher chance of like a mid-year transition. But yeah, I kind of think, you look at the Niners record over the last 3 years, and the only reason they've had 2 losing seasons is due to a starting caliber quarterback going down. Mm-hmm. And people love hyping up Nick Mullins, but he's not a starting caliber quarterback for the NFL. So I think after seeing last year, they're going to keep both the full year, knowing that this is like a Super Bowl capable team. Mm-hmm. And if one gets hurt, you've got the opportunity to throw in the rookie. If not, you make a deep playoff run. But I don't know. I could see maybe 5-6 weeks in, somewhere around the trade deadline, if there's a few wins where the run game is doing a lot, the defense is playing well, and the reason we're losing tight games is we can't get anything going through the air. They just make a move, trade him to New England, trade him to one of these teams that either needs a veteran or has no one. But yeah, I kind of like the plan of rolling through a whole year with both.
I hope that's the route they go. I just don't. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the route they go. One spin that I want to put out there that I hope that Shanahan and Lynch are thinking is the old way that, like when Harbaugh first came in and used Kaepernick, the way that Tebow should have been utilized, the way that Taysom Hill was utilized. Like, Garoppolo is a great game manager. Like, what people don't realize necessarily is he, like, in Shanahan's offense, like, he's making reads at the line. He is controlling the run game just as much as the passing game. Like, he's part of the offense. And it's a West Coast style offense, so there's not a ton of deep throws. And Garoppolo is pretty good actually at hitting Kittle in the flat, or those like seam routes or the curls. Like, as long as it's a rhythm throw, he's pretty good at it. But then mix in the young guy, mix in the athlete, have a couple formations where both quarterbacks are on the field. As far as like the ingenuity with play calling, I absolutely trust Shanahan to come up with creative and fun ways to get whoever this new guy is involved. But like, do it. Give him a drive. Throw him in on a 3rd down when it's a 3rd and 1. Like, is he gonna like get outside the pocket and run for it? I don't know, but like, I think the Saints showed that there is more ways to play the quarterback position than we think, right? Like, Taysom Hill is not a like prototypical quarterback. Drew Brees is one of the all-time greats, and they found ways to use both of them. Like, I think both of them would be happy with the amount of playing time, the amount of they had the ball in their hands. And I don't see why that can't be a thing. As much as I'm a Garoppolo fan, like, take away a series from him and let the rookie run with it. But Garoppolo is still your starting quarterback. When it comes down to crunch time and you need a 2-minute drill, and you need like someone who has been practicing the 2-minute drill and understands exactly what 7 or 8 plays you're going to run in a row, you go your QB1. But when you're in the middle of the second quarter and your offense is kind of in a lull, throw in the new kid and let's see if he can make a play happen. I don't see why those things have to conflict, and I don't see and if Shanahan has the trust of the locker room, like I really think he does, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Like giving the new guy some reps. And so I'm really really excited for the possibilities, and I hope it's not a traditional like, okay, like he's just stashed on the bench and we're waiting to see how the Garoppolo thing pans out, or just yank the rug out from under Jimmy and he just is now asked to be the veteran backup and hoping to get traded. Like I hope that I think that they will. I utilize both of them well, and I hope that that's kind of the route that they go. We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited to see what name gets called at number 3.
And I'm looking at it right now. So what we don't have an actual schedule, but we do know our opponents. And like, I guess this kind of sucks that there's not Niners fans right now, but sorry about it. Like I'm looking right now. So we play at home, Green Bay, Houston, Vikings. We get all the West, NFC West, the Falcons and the Colts. And then for road teams, Eagles, Bears, Titans, Jaguars, Lions. So
and the Bengals.
Week 17.
Oh,
I
why
got
is
it
that not on here? That's kind of funny.
It got added as the 17th week.
So what's odd there is, we were talking about what the schedule is going to be or what our record could be. Let's just say that I'm looking at home games is the first 8 weeks and the road is the last 8 weeks, just whatever. Like the West, like the NFC West is pretty strong. And like the Cardinals got better. Like ideally, I don't know. Well, not ideally, but I guess the Seahawks need to figure out what they're going to get kind of locked in. I don't know if they've locked in Russell Wilson yet or whatever that kind of rumors that were starting there. But like that's tough. And like, sure, it's great that we have Green Bay at home to get some advantage. And the Vikings defense looks great, but hopefully we can get a win there. The Falcons are going to be probably just as rough, and same with the Colts. But like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to like look at who we have and see that we're just going to dominate because you play 6 games against the NFC West and they all look good.
I look at it too, just of the schedule though. I think there are quite a few opportunities for almost like a Warriors style starters only play 3 quarters, and then hopefully you could throw a rookie in for like a whole 4th quarter against like the Jaguars, the Lions, the Texans, maybe even the Bears.
Cincinnati, like I could be bad. Like Joe Burrow's great, but like I don't know what else he's really.
Their defense is so like there's just a lot of bad outside of conference games, and like the Packers. Like there's a lot of opportunity to like not only just a few plays to throw a rookie in, but like maybe even a whole quarter at the end if it's one of those games like thinking of like the Bengals games in the 2019 season where we were up by like 30 going into the 4th quarter. Like it's not like putting a Nick Mullins in and being like, I hope we hold on. It's like, all right, there's another like quality starter in there to gain experience, but like that can comfortably hold a lead while getting more than just a play every few series.
That'd be awesome if we get to that point, because I think you're right. Depending on how the schedule shakes out, like if we play Cincinnati or Jacksonville or Detroit early on, like there's a chance that we get a couple runaway games. Looking at the schedule, okay, we play the NFC North, Green Bay, Minnesota at home, which is nice, but like Chicago and Detroit, like those should be wins, and you hope you split Green Bay, Minnesota. Like hope you go 3-1 against the division against. I
think. Right? I mean, okay.
Just trying to add up the math, right? Like you're hoping that you win one of the Green Bay, Minnesota games. Those are both good teams, and you should win against both Chicago and Detroit. Like you're hoping to go 3-1.
I think with what you guys are saying, in getting any kind of Zach Wilson or Justin Fields reps, assuming those are one of the 2 picks, Chicago Bears is still like a good defense, so we can't like rule that part out.
No.
So, like that game's not gonna be close. Sure, Detroit, I have no idea what they're doing. Like they literally blew up their team. So sure, let that one be the one that he maybe squeaks in, but we haven't really seen that by too many teams. that are like, hey, we're up by 14 or up by 21. Let's go ahead and put our rookie in.
Yeah.
Because I think there was one game where the Patriots said that the Patriots did that. They sat Tom Brady and they put their rookie in, and then he threw 2 picks and Tom Brady had to come back in. And then you just risk there being a turn. And I get that would be great if we could, but I just don't see that happening.
I mean, as an athlete, like you're always ready. Like as much as the like James mentioned, like the Warriors style, sitting in the whole fourth quarter. Like I would do this as a coach. Like I would try to like get the guys that don't get necessarily a ton of playing time, like in the fourth quarter. We got a big lead, but like I would always tell my starters, like if this gets within 15, you're going back in. Like stay, and like guys know that, and like, or if there's only 2 minutes left, like hey, if this gets to single digits, you're going back in. So one thing that I want to point out for you guys is we're gonna have to probably do this in parts because I don't have this pro Zoom account anymore. I just have a notification saying that this meeting will end in 10 minutes. So that's fun.
I have a pro because that's what my company uses. So if you want to,
we're gonna have to potentially have you be the Zoom record. Yeah, we switched from Zoom to Teams. I didn't realize that I couldn't have a long meeting anymore. It just ends. I mean, that's cool. Let's. I want to wrap up the schedule talk, and then we'll stop and start re-recording for now on the actual fantasy side of things. But looking at the schedule, 3-1 against the NFC North, play the AFC South, and honestly, like the Niners could win all of those games against the Texans, Colts, Jaguars, and Titans, right? So call it. You're hoping for another 3-1. You got 6-2 right now. Then you've got the Falcons, Eagles, and Bengals, the fourth place teams that we get to play. Like you should go, like that should be 3 wins. Like you're looking at 9-2, and last year we went 4-2 against the division. If you just call it, you split games with everybody. You go 3-3. That's a 12-5 record, and I think that's good enough to get in the playoffs, right? Like I think this team should be expecting to make the playoffs, whether it's Garoppolo or the new guy taking over. And this should be just a very exciting season. 12-5 should maybe won't win the division because Arizona's good, Seattle's good, LA apparently got better with the Stafford trade. According to some people, like it's going to be tough, but like there's a lot of wins out there, no matter who's at quarterback for San Francisco, and this is going to be an exciting season. Like as long as they stay healthy, it's going to be a really good time.
I see a 9-7 wild card is more realistic in my head, and I think that's. I know you're hoping 3-1 out of the NFC North. I see that more as a 2-2, and I
also said
Titans, I think, are by far better than all the other 3 within their division. And that's the one that I don't think. But you did say 3-1 there. So I think that one, I guess, is more realistic there. But I don't know.
And I'm also saying that the Falcons, Eagles, and Bengals are like should all be wins, which they might not be. Like there's a lot in there. But it's I don't think 12 wins is unattainable. Like that's
no, I would agree. I think that's like your high end for sure. But
and just all of the free agent moves are just like have shored up so many, like having a strong center in Shanahan's offense. Trent Williams is back. The O-line should be better, more consistent quarterback play, hopefully with a better backup. The secondary is pretty much all back. Mm-hmm. Hopefully Bosa's coming back at least at 90%. Like it's just a well-constructed team. Like it doesn't feel like, unless we have, and I think I read some article that we had like the second worst injured season in like the last 30 years or something like that. Like outside of catastrophic injuries, like I feel like 10 wins is like not insane to like expect as a bar. This should be kind of like at least a 10-win team, hopefully. Yeah. Not at least, but yeah.
Definitely a lot to chew on the Niners stuff. This is going to give us a nice, interesting little transition. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and take a quick break, and we'll come back with more action regarding
Commercial break.
Yeah, Squarespace.
I'll actually talk about our league and not just fake football, not just real football. Heyo! All right, welcome back, everybody. Let's talk fantasy football then. Now that we've gotten all of our Niners stuff out. One thing that we've talked about a little bit is expanding the number of keepers that we have. Obviously, going into the 21 season, we're not going to change that. We're still going to have 2 keepers, Rule 9 draft, all that. But we've definitely thought about, do we expand it to 3? Do we expand it to 4? Going into the 22 season. So we want to make that call before any trades, when trade windows open up for this year. We want to all be playing by the same rules, understand what's going on. So let's open that up for discussion. I think the general sentiment across the league when I've mentioned it to people is that, yeah, let's expand it a little bit. But do we go to 3? Do we go to 4? I'll start with you, James. What are you thinking as far as numbers? You want to go to 3? You want to go to 4? You had maybe some other ideas about like the inflation rate and all that stuff. Talk to me. What are your thoughts on expanding the number of keepers?
Yeah, I like 3 as opposed to 4 because I think that still leaves an opportunity for that Rule 9 draft, which I really enjoy. And I think it just adds a whole nother layer of how people value players and draft picks. Whereas 4, I think all of a sudden going into the draft, it's already pretty thin. And by like rounds 5 and 6, you're drafting players that may not even start. And then with the 3rd keeper, haven't thought too much into this, but I think there could be something fun with like one of your keepers is like team captain and they age at like a slower keeper value rate than your other 2, but you're like committed to them for at least 3 seasons if you give them this designation. I don't know. There's like a lot at play there, but trying to make it like fun and
there's no wrong answers in brainstorming, which is the stage we're at right now. Nabil, what are your thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like this. We all have people that we like are drafting our like lifetime players or whatever, right? So like example, the Kamara situation, right? But like, what if you just sat there and like, all right, I signed team captain status, which you have to keep him at, and like maybe you lock him in as like a prolonged keeper, just like kind of playing off this other idea for James, right? Is like you say, all right, this guy's my captain. I now am locked in and it's like a guaranteed contract or whatever. You still keep him at maybe a slightly slower inflation rate, but you have to keep him for like 3 years or something.
Yeah.
I kind of like playing off that, but I would just say like almost the reverse is what I was kind of thinking is what if you could keep someone at a higher inflation rate, but no like round keeper effects to that, in the sense of like you could hypothetically keep a first round pick, right? Even though you can't keep them the following year. Or if your 3rd is a 3rd round keeper, you just can't keep them the following year, but you can now. I don't know. I guess that I just wonder if the alternatives, you could flip it to not having a captain and it being like your 3rd keeper, you just can't keep the following year.
Yeah, like it's a one. You can only keep
a one and done.
He gets like no keeper tag for the next year, or maybe accelerates faster. Like maybe he jumps 2 years to begin with. Like it just like is a doubling rate. Like so he goes 2 for the selfish reason why I wouldn't want to necessarily do that is because it just becomes a lot more to manually manage and track for myself. I think it would be fun, but it does become like, as far as adjusting the inflation rate for specific players, like that becomes a little bit complicated and messy. Unless we do something like so something I think I've kind of talked with Kevin a bit is, what if we had like a keeper slot that was position specific? Like you could like you only get like, so right now pretty it's changed a little bit, right? But 2 years ago, no one kept a quarterback, no one kept a tight end. It was all running backs and receivers. So what if you made like the third keep? You added a keeper slot that had to be a quarterback, or only was allowed to be wide receiver or tight end, or something like that. We could mix that in. So it's like, okay, you're not allowed to keep 3 running backs or what. But the reasoning, I don't want to just like make up a rule on that. Like I would want to have some sort of reasoning behind it. And one thing I really like about our current system is you can keep whoever you want. You can build your roster however you want it to be. But it might be interesting, especially if we see a trend towards, or because there are a couple quarterbacks and tight ends that are on there now. If we see a trend back towards they're just never kept, maybe we add that third slot as only quarterback or tight end. But that's I don't know that I necessarily want to do that, but it's a thought. Again, no wrong answers in brainstorming.
Yeah, I would say on that, I think it would make more sense if if you were to have a position specific third round or third keeper, it being wide receiver, running back, to open the capability of having flexibility at the quarterback and tight end. Because I think one of Hoyt's concerns, I feel like I've heard this from him, so maybe I'm just throwing this name out for no reason, but I think the concern was that tight ends might get kept then, or quarterbacks might get kept at a rate that is not necessarily fair, right? Because there's like a top 4 tight ends, right? So if someone could keep Waller automatically because it's a tight end specific keeper, and I don't have a tight end to even keep, then they're getting that bit of advantage. But if you make it a flex, more like a wide receiver, running back flexed keeper, then that opens everyone's third spot to be whatever they want. But then most likely someone's just going to keep a wide receiver or running back to kind of fit the trend that we're going towards anyway, right?
Yeah.
We're all looking for that stud wide receiver that's later on in the rounds that is a hit or miss, or you want to keep your third round valued running backs. Like I know in my situation with both Eckler and, well, at one point Ken and Drake, but after this trade, I'm probably not going to keep them at all. But like looking at that, like that allows me to keep those while also taking a chance on a wide receiver that I have in the 11th or 8th or 10th or whatever.
Yeah. I real quick, I do want to address the point, and I don't know if all of what you said about Hoyt was correct as far as like who said that. Like I don't know either. But I do, one point that Hoyt brought up to me was potentially changing the tight end position in our league to a flex or a receiver tight end spot. And because we're a keeper league, we can't do that. Like we can't artificially punish Devin for getting George Kittle and Ryan for getting who's the Chiefs tight end? I'm totally blanking on. Kelsey. Thank you. Like those guys it might not be fair that like they've got this incredible asset that's like a low round pick, but like we all had access to draft those guys in rounds before. Like it's not fair.
I have a perfect example. I could have had that same thing with OJ Howard, right? Like I took that chance. It didn't pan out, but I had an opportunity to have him at 13 and have him forever.
So as much as we might, like, if it was a redraft league, I think the way that tight end is kind of shaping up right now is like there are a couple of guys that are basically receivers. In my opinion, in redraft leagues, Kelsey should be a first round pick next year. Like he should be going in the back end of the first round, or maybe even like 7 or 8 if you really want him. Like, I'm not going to punish the guys who 2 years ago made the right choice in drafting those tight ends before they blew up. If it was redraft, maybe we look at making that tight end spot a pass catching flex. But that is something I wanted to just to get out there, that I don't want to necessarily change that. I've talked a lot. James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree with the tight end conversation. I think it's just it's just your methodology. Are you going to value a tight end really high and risk not hitting on one of the big receivers or running backs? But in looping back to like the positional aspect to keepers, I like this idea of like different positions. I keep saying age, but
like the inflation,
the inflation rate, like a quarterback inflates way slower than a running back or wide receiver to entice people to take a chance on drafting a rookie quarterback in like the 10th through 15th round. And like if you had hit on Mahomes before anything had happened, you have the opportunity to keep him, whereas we're never seeing outside of like a season or two of Lamar and Mahomes, and then all of a sudden they've quickly aged out of their keeper value. But we see Nick Chubb, Kamara, Gurley, like those keepers last a long time, and running backs and wide receivers have values year to year as keepers. But if we tweaked how different positions inflate, it incentivizes looking for those rookies or up and comers, like we do with kind of only running backs and wide receivers.
I think it's an interesting conversation to have. I just don't know that there's a right answer other than let's leave it as is because it's working and everyone understands how the rules work. But I do think it's an interesting conversation. Like, I think I'll end up falling back on that. But if there is a system that's proposed that I like, as far as how that looks at, like, how do quarterbacks inflate differently, then I'm all ears. But also, does that just mean that quarterbacks get will the market react, and will we just draft those rookie quarterbacks earlier because Trevor Lawrence, if you know he's going to be incredibly valuable, you're gonna be able to keep him for 5 years. If you wait to get him to the 10th round, then he probably actually becomes more of like a 6th or 7th round draft pick, because even though you're not going to lock him up for as long, like, you're not going to wait and let someone else get him for that long. So is it just kind of artificial? But also, quarterbacks are kind of undervalued in general in our league, and I'd be okay with making quarterbacks a little bit more valuable. Nabil, what do you got?
I think to that point, that's exactly why I went with Joe Burrow, right? Like, I went Joe Burrow in the 12th or something in hopes that while he does look good, but I think this keeps coming down to how our draft or how our league trends have looked. I made well, I would say foolish, like, quarterback pick for Deshaun Watson 2 years ago. And I guess now, like, recent news, now I kind of feel more guilty, but not really. Didn't know it then. But, I think I drafted him in the 6th, and then it was like 3 more rounds till the next quarterback was pulled, right? So, like, I think we have all played enough where quarterback, I think we understand the value of quarterback. We all just realize we all understand that we can get more, like, better players that are towards other positions, and we can push quarterback to the end, because all of us understand that we'll just probably wait until the double-digit rounds. And that was very apparent this last draft, right? I think there was a huge wave of quarterbacks picked. I chose 3 in this timeline, but, like, we had round 11, 12, 13, 14, all with multiple quarterbacks, because we knew, hey, now we could start looking to quarterbacks. So I think to the point of inflating different, I would say that if we're going to look at changing keeper rules moving forward, at least at this moment, it would be just introducing a 3rd keeper. And then if we want, either making it a one and done or a captain or something like that, where it's just, hey, we know that this is just tagged as a one and done, you're good. And I understand that might not be the preference of us 3 to suggest it to the league, but that style is more of what I think we should look towards, and instead of having different positional inflation rates, because I think we're still learning how to adjust to the inflation. Because I can say that over the last 3 years, our league's trends on who we are actually keeping has changed, because I think we're still adjusting, especially with the Rule 9, as James mentioned. I know that I'm definitely into that. I think it adds a whole new dimension to our league anyway. I do want to just quickly, one point, to fact check what Chris fact checked. You are right. Hoyt didn't mention anything about the inflation or keeper whatever for certain positions. It was absolutely what you had mentioned about flexing the tight end position. So I apologize, Hoyt, don't come at me.
Hey, same day corrections. That is better than most podcasts out there. Yeah, I think your point though about the still learning really matters though. There are so many things that we are all learning about trying to navigate this league that if we change too many rules at a time, it kind of defeats the purpose of building a league with we're always like there's rules changes every year in the NFL, right? And rules change every year in the NBA and baseball, but the core of the game doesn't fundamentally change. And that's the thing, is we want to add rules that make it more interesting, more fun, but not completely blow up strategies that have worked or that may work. As far as the number of keepers that we add, like I definitely think because James, we kind of talked about like 3 or 4. We can always add a 4th later, but let's start by adding we can add a 4th in a year. So for the 2023 season, if the 3rd one is successful and we have it and we all think, yeah, like we might as well add one more. I think adding a 3rd keeper going into the 22 season is going to be the way to go. That's what I would propose, that we just add a 3rd, reevaluate in a year, 2 years, we want to add a 4th. I think it'll make Rule 9 really interesting if we have a 3rd, because right now about pretty much everyone used both keepers for, like sometimes, Travis didn't use either one of his a couple times. Andrew didn't use keepers a couple times. So you're looking at like 20 to 24 guys are kept every year, but then another 20 or so have been picked in the Rule 9 draft every year. So if those now just become keepers, like you're thinking like, okay, now you're looking more like 33 to 36 guys are kept, and that Rule 9 draft pool is now 10 players that are worth it. And focusing the Rule 9 draft down to a smaller pool of players is going to make it, I think, more competitive, which ultimately is going to be a little bit more fun, rather than, because right now everyone kind of has this problem in Rule 9 where it's like, okay, like there's like 4 guys I would want to bid on with my 5th round pick. You don't know who. I don't know who, like, and so you might have, I would have bid, if I bid on that guy, I would have won. Like, hopefully, if we, by adding a keeper and just adding one, we don't completely torpedo Rule 9. It still is a fun part of the draft, but it's more focused and probably a lot more competitive. And then winning, to win a guy in the draft, you're going to probably have to bid a little bit higher than you did in the last couple of years, but like you should have to, like, it's going to, like, the Rule 9, like you're getting not just the player, you're getting his keeper value, right? So that's what I'm proposing, is that we add a 3rd keeper. But for all the reasons I just laid out, I think it'll add more to the league than it would take away. Obviously, we have 2 coming into this year, but it would be 3 going into the 22 season.
So you're suggesting 3rd, no, I guess,
no
special
stipulations.
No, yeah, just a 3rd keeper slot. And let's see, like, I think the stipulations are fun to talk about. I think we could find something that works, but like what we have now also works, so why not just expand it? Like, I think the discussions are good, but like just keeping it simple is probably a good way to go.
Well, I think creating these talking points, what it does is, say at the end of 2022 we realize, or maybe it's at the end of 2023, we realize, okay, this is starting to get a little unfair. So people are getting 3 solid keepers that are allowing 4 teams to just dominate every year. So now we need to put some sort of stipulation on the 3rd pick, or you add, like, so I think it allows us 2 to 3 years down the road to reevaluate, to see if there's some way that we can modify in a way that is beneficial to every team in the league. Because I would also just want to throw one other caveat, I guess, to it is,
sure,
could we consider, with the 2 examples that you gave with Travis and Andrew, I think not having taken all their keepers or taking any keepers at all, considering that if we move up to 3 keepers, there are going to be teams that have 3 legit keepers. But I think generally you'll want to keep your players, but if you cannot, why not maybe give that advantage to, hey, if there's a team that has 5 legit keepers and they don't trade them away, could there be something in between the Rule 9 that allows teams that maybe don't have enough keepers to just pick within there of just those teams first, right? Because like, what if the team that has 3 keepers who had 2 additional keepers that they could have kept throws them to Rule 9 and then they win the Rule 9? Now they have 5 of the best keepers. This is all hypothetical. And now their team is super dominant because of that. However, you could have given a team that had no eligible keepers that are anywhere as comparable, at least be able to pick from the open pool to at least have a better chance of setting themselves up not only for the Rule 9, but for the draft, and their team looks more well-rounded.
Just so like basically like they would draft to fill out their keeper slots.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
Interesting.
James,
yeah. I feel like you don't want to give advantage to a team who drafted poorly to be able to like keep up with teams that drafted better, but I think that we'll just have to allow the trade window to be open prior to the Rule 9 draft so they can sell off draft picks to maybe lock down a keeper heading into Rule 9. But yeah, I feel like it puts teams that have set themselves up the best into a disadvantage of like, now these teams that don't have good keepers can like pick off when I could have sold them off and like get even more ammo for Rule 9.
Yeah, because it disincentivizes you if you don't have keepers that you're like, if you're looking for somebody, right? Like, and if say I have one guy, I need to fill my 2 slots. Nabil, you've got 5, so hey, like we are good trade partners, right? Like you've got extra keepers. Like I'll give you some more draft capital to get one of the 3 you're not keeping. But in what you're proposing is like, okay, if we can't make a deal, now I just get to pick who you want. Like, then why do I want to trade with you? Like, if I don't make a deal, like now someone else might come along and make the deal and actually get who I want, and that's the incentive. So it's not like it's gone. But if I know, hey, yeah, like everybody else in the league has their keepers picked, I'm just gonna take whoever. Like I'm gonna get the crumbs that Nabil leaves behind. Why would I trade with you and give you anything if I'm just going to get to fill my keeper slot that way?
That's fair. I mean, I'm wondering if there's, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I'm trying to think back to last year, how I think it was just with the addition, or once we kind of reshuffled the players, we obviously had more players traded at the end right before the deadline. But I just am wondering, some people hold on to their extra keepers till the Rule 9 because they know that they can attempt to win them in the Rule 9. And I'm wondering, I kind of think what is fun is incentivizing a reason to trade. So like, if you know then that you might not even get, like you might lose your keepers, you might not have a chance at Rule 9, that it might incentivize you to actually make the trades that are being offered for those who want them. I get it. It works kind of like there has to be a balance of like, okay, I have one eligible keeper. I have 2 open slots. Oh, I'll just wait till this mini period where I can just take someone else's without having to worry about Rule 9. Well, what if, and this is where it's a lot harder for you, Chris, so I apologize, but like, what if the inflation on those players, or like the penalty on those players getting drafted during that window, is so much higher that I'll just wait till Rule 9 to draft, so I don't like, or I can make a trade proposal to another team to try to get that player because it might end up better for me in the long run. I don't have to worry about this window, and then Rule 9, I don't want to lose a chance. So I just think there's a way that you can incentivize trading right before both that window and Rule 9. It's like we're getting way into it, and it's we don't have enough data even on Rule 9. So like,
right, and I think I think these discussions are fun and interesting, and I'm not trying, like when you're like, I like the idea that you threw out there. I'm just trying to come up with like how I see it playing out. And the main thing is I like the complexity of the league. I like how unique it is. I like how much like critical thinking really has to go into all the decisions. But like we're already playing chess, right? Like we don't need it to be 3D chess. Like at some point there is like we don't need to add so many layers of complexity that it becomes like difficult to comprehend. Like as much as I love this league, it is great that to be able to completely forget who my keepers are for a few months out of the year. Like I couldn't tell you. I couldn't look at my roster. I couldn't tell you. Like I'd have to look at my roster right now and
I know both mine.
I'm pretty close. I think I'm more than I could currently keep, but
it's nice to be able to, like, if you want to like reset and just turn on, like, and that's what, as much as like it would be great to have like a year-round trade window open, but like there are plenty of us who like just we don't want to be thinking about fantasy football for 12 months at it. Now in the season it's 24/7 for me and it's constantly on my mind and I enjoy that too, but I don't want it to be so complicated that it's now becomes like too high of a bar to get people to understand what's going on. Like we got really lucky that we had a guy like Spencer who got me into fantasy sports way back in 2009 or 2010. I talked to him about our league and he was like, dude, that's awesome. Like understood the complexities in that. Like at some point we don't, like, you know, there will be more league turnover. I know that, like, and I hope that I hope that the 12 guys we have now all stay around forever. But I know that at some point people are probably just gonna be like, hey, you know, like I need to focus on other things. It's you know, and hopefully that's many years down the road. But when we bring new people in to fill their spots, we can't have it be so complicated that it's like, okay, then this rule and that, like rule 9 is complicated enough, but it makes sense, right? Hey, it's a keeper league. Anyone who's eligible but didn't get picked, there's a supplemental draft for them. That's how you can explain that very simply. And I don't want to overcomplicate it because but I do think there are ways that we can try to make those trades more interesting. Something I've thought that it's completely out of left field. How we evaluate keepers, you know, is based on, you know, what round they're taken in. What if we had some sort of like point system for like what round they're being kept in, like at, like, you know, you can only keep guys with a value of 20 total rounds. So like you get 10 rounders, that's it. Like that's a ton of capital. But like keeping guys higher, you could, if you got a third or a fourth rounder, that only adds up to, you know, like if you got a third and a fourth, that's only 7. So you can keep one more guy like down at 13, but don't, that way you can't keep at like 12, 13, and 14 because like, and you're just back loading all of your keepers. Like that would be a way potentially to incentivize more trades to happen, be a way to prevent one team from really like loading up. And it's not what we talked about at all going into it, but I think there are mechanisms out there if we keep brainstorming and trying to find them to improve the keeper process. So I don't want to discourage you is my point, Nabil, but I don't want to overcomplicate it.
No, that's fair. I'm not discouraged.
Yeah, good.
I don't think I'm the one that you had to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, always excited, never prepared.
I agree. I think it makes sense that the earlier point of like an incremental rule change, let it play out for like 2 seasons so we can see how it affects the draft and the following year's rule 9 and draft. I do like the idea of like rental keepers. You can like sell the rights to a keeper for a season, but then you reclaim it after that season if you have like an extra one, or someone like has a hole to fill, but you like the long-term plan of that.
Or I think there's putting them on loan, right? Is that the terminology in the soccer world?
Good old soccer world, loans.
I like the idea of being able to put guys on loan. I think loans would be fun for like, you know, like
that goes back to the honor system of what we were talking about previously, right? Like there were some trades that I know that I came up with where it's like, I think it was with Andrew one year, right? Like, oh, I'll draft you this player for 2 weeks with the return. And here's like, instead of you giving me a higher pick, you're giving me like a 13 or 14 swap kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But that's just for giving you 2 weeks with a better player. So yeah, I mean, I think loans are available. And I still think that we should consider one and done, like one and done or one off the table or like captains. I think these are things that we can consider in the next 2 years as just ways that I think it would be interesting. Like, here's your consequence for keeping this, better player during this period is that you can't keep them the following year, or like, I don't know, it's probably not a no draft or whatever, but there's, I think, language that we could definitely look into in the following, couple of years. I would say we have already hit the 30-minute mark, so just keep that in mind.
I was
looking at it.
I was about to say it's probably time to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to propose to the league, just to let's add. I'm going to say let's add a third keeper, not going into next year, but into the following year. So think about that when you are drafting. That there are 3 keeper spots available from the 21 to 22 season. I'll throw that out in an email, put it to a vote, see what everyone is thinking. Pretty much, unless they're, I know we said like, a 2/3 majority. I don't see why. I don't think that's going to be hard to get, but if it is, like, if there is a lot of pushback to adding a keeper, I'd love to hear it. But I think everyone would be in. So but if you're not, please let me know. And I don't just want to necessarily put it to a vote, but if you've got like good hard reasons why you're not into adding a third keeper, like, let me know why. And we don't, but like, and I can bring those points up to the rest of the league. But if you're indifferent, let me know. If you're yay, let me know. Like, I think a third keeper slot makes sense. I think we can reevaluate adding rules or adding a 4th keeper or whatever over the next few years. But let's make that proposal to the league.
Yeah, I would say probably if you're going to get any pushback, it's people who are maybe looking through or just looking at what's right in front of them, which is their keepers for this year, and would say that if they don't have 3 solid keepers, that they are immediately at a disadvantage. But that would just push those teams to keep in mind, draft this year, not that you should only focus on the following year, but draft this year with that in mind, that you can keep 3. So, if you're deciding between a veteran or a rookie and round 9 or 13, probably take the rookie if you're trying to build a roster that you can look at for 3 keepers. I think recently a lot of us have been pretty good at trying to take chances on rookies in the end, but that would be my word of advice for those who may be against it, which I agree. I would assume most people in our league are pretty down for a third keeper.
Yeah. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to force people to be maybe a little more aggressive in Rule 9 this year. And I also think we'll start seeing like more 2nd and 3rd round keepers of just like, this is a stud player and he costs a 1st round pick to keep him, but I'm at the end of the 1st round and he's a top 2 running back. So I'll just make my 3rd keeper him, and I've got a top running back at the end of the 1st round.
I think we'll see some of that too. I'm curious what other trends come out of it. But yeah, let's see what the league thinks. Let's put that to a vote. We should wrap it up. But you guys got anything else that you wanted to add before we call it a day?
I will be posting my Jimmy Garoppolo jersey on eBay later today with a buy now price of $25. Let me know if you're interested.
I didn't even really know people use eBay. I'm surprised you're not on that Facebook marketplace, but fuck Mark Zuckerberg, I guess.
Nabil, anything from you?
No, I think I've said my mind.
All right,
I'm ready to edit this video for you, Chris.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll chat again soon.
Peace.